Week number 2 of training camp underway for the Buckeyes. It is Monday on the beat. He is Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. This is the Austin and Berm Show. And when you think, Berm, about what was accomplished in those first 3 practices, including getting the pads on Saturday, and let's say Ryan Day wanted your input and insight. So, Berm, what do the Buckeyes need to get done in week number 2? Where would you begin?
I would begin with a number of times we saw the ball put on the ground by running backs in the first 3 days. That was a little much. To say that the Buckeyes were clean in their execution on the offensive line as far as penalties and that sort of stuff goes, that would also probably be something that I'd be looking at.
A lot of laps.
A lot of laps from guys, quarterbacks, running backs, offensive linemen definitely led the way in laps.
Defensive linemen jumping offside.
Yeah, so I mean, it's what you expect from first 3 days of practice, and now it's just about, okay, we got the jitters out, there's no more fans, there's no more media. This is now real football for the next couple of weeks for Ohio State as they get into the real, like, nitty-gritty of camp. They check into the hotel on Monday night, they get themselves ready for 2 weeks of hell, essentially. And the celebration part of football is back is now over. And you got through it with only one nagging injury, whatever's going on with Edric, and he'll, like I said on Saturday, I think he'll be back this week. But it looked like a team on Saturday when we were out at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center that was a little bit already tired of camp, at least early. And so I think that's the areas I'd focus. Clarity, juice.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to make sweeping reactions, assessments, evaluations, or overreactions based on 3 days of practice when only one of them was padded and it wasn't still full contact. But I was definitely struck by the amount of times that the football was on the ground. I don't remember having just a burst of 3 consecutive days to really, even last year, I don't think we got to go to the third one when the pads came on. It was trying to think, is that unusual? Is it just recency bias? Does this happen every single year? And I bet it does, because when you go back out there and you haven't played real football or practiced football in 3 months, it's going to be difficult. And there's another piece that you mentioned on snap judgments on Saturday, that the defense seems well ahead of the offense at this point. That part I know for sure is incredibly common for a training camp. But usually it stops in pass breakups, and I think that the punches, the football coming loose, the sometimes just center exchanges that aren't being executed to the full potential, that felt like, you want to see that better by next Saturday, I'm sure, if you're Ryan Day.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Day talked about it in Las Vegas at Media Days, that running backs have not been hit. And even thud tempo, it's different. Even if you're not thudding and it's just guys walking by you and trying to swat the ball to your hand, that's a different thing, and especially different for Turbo Rogers, who just got to campus 5 weeks ago and has not had the practice opportunities with Carlos Lachlan and all of the drill work that they've done. It's certainly the case when you deal with Isaiah West, who missed most of his senior season with an injury and is now out here for the first time. It's even the case with Bo Jackson, who missed most of his senior season with injury. It's the case for James Peoples, who had 70 carries as a freshman. This is not a group that is like years and years of carrying the football experience in college ball. And when you see someone with the arms of Sonny Styles and they're punching the football, it's harder. Yeah, that is a different task than it is when you're playing in high school and kids who are not on your level, athletically, are trying to punch the football out of your hand. So it's just clean things. I think the one thing you mentioned, the snaps. So there was a handful of times when the shotgun snap was low. Those are things that you just okay, keep an eye on that, I guess. It's about cleaning up the inefficiencies for Ohio State, and that's what really has to start on Monday.
Yeah, too many laps. You got to get rid of those laps, but that's why they take them. You got to pay attention too to who runs them. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Ethan Onyanwa. When he's had those opportunities, he's sprinting because he wants to get back out there and not miss any reps. And sometimes you can see guys maybe I can just coast and catch my breath here a little bit. Certainly the guys at the top of the depth chart, they do not want to risk their position or risk their snaps getting taken. So that was fun to take note of that. We're not going to see any more of that for the rest of training camp, barring a change, which is always possible. Schedule is subject to change. But if there was a chance for Ryan Day then to come to you and continue that conversation and say, hey, Berm, what did you think was really, really good for the first 3 days? What would you say?
I am way more pleased with what I saw out of the entire defensive line. And, we spent the entire offseason talking about the defensive tackles. I think having questions about the defensive ends was just as fair based on the fact that Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson had not really been put into a full-time starting responsibility type of role until now, with CJ Hicks making the move to defensive end from linebacker after 3 years, with Bo Atkinson coming in from North Carolina, with Zion Grady and Epi Satanale and the young guys that you don't know what you're going to get. Like, I think the defensive ends especially have been way better than I thought they'd be. And it's Eric Mensah, it's Will Smith, and Kayden McDonald on the inside. Those three have been a real problem for the interior of the offensive line, which again, I wouldn't have expected, because that's the group that we were like, oh, this is maybe the best interior starting 3 offensive line Ohio State's had in a while, where you're like, okay, we can feel pretty comfortable since probably 2019 with Josh Myers, Wyatt Davis, and Thayer Munford. So like you can feel pretty good about where they are, but the way that the defensive line's performed has been up for me.
Yeah, and I think that's, stocks are Wednesday.
Oh.
I think that's a really good point and a really encouraging sign. And it's a combination, because I didn't leave on Saturday thinking, oh,
no, it's not like
the
offensive line is struggling.
Like,
right.
I think they're still going to be really good. And even in some of the one-on-one periods, like they were putting up some roadblocks that were impressive. Now, it didn't always continue throughout team periods, but that's fine. They get different schematic elements and blitzes and things that make it more challenging. But I'm not concerned that the Ohio State offensive line is not going to be good enough. I still think it's going to be the deepest one that I've seen in 14 years of covering the Buckeyes.
Yeah,
so that's what adds.
It's not the defensive line is doing good, therefore the offensive line must be bad.
I think that gives extra validation to what these guys are doing, because when Eric Mensah is winning these reps, they stand out, because that's not someone that I circled. That's not someone that we talked about for more than maybe one episode of people to watch over throughout the offseason. And then we immediately went back to not including him in the conversation with where's Will Smith Jr. going to play? Is Tywan Malone ready to take this jump? Is Jason Moore going to be able to get out there? I think, again, that's based on 3 days, and there's 3 more weeks of this to go for Ohio State. Based on what I saw on those opening practices, I feel like Eric Mensah should remain in the conversation at 3 technique behind Edric Houston. And that's definitely not something that I anticipated saying, but as you expand that out, if the depth is in a better situation than we thought, that disregarding the transfer portal, not bringing anybody in, the bet on these guys that they had in the building, it's looking okay. Even when you took Edric Houston out of the lineup, and on Thursday when he deals with the knee injury and he's being helped to the locker room, it's like, oh my God, how are they going to handle this if this is the thinnest position group? The next guys in have really met that challenge so far.
Yeah, and it's, we can look back in time and you're like, well, why would you let Hero Kanu leave? Like, I don't know that Hero in year 4 is any substantially different than what we've seen out of Eric Mensah in year 3 in these first couple of days, right?
Sure.
Based on what we saw out of Hero last year.
He's more athletic.
Yeah, so I think it's about opportunity. It's about taking a hold of that opportunity, and so far so good for those guys. Linebackers, I want to talk about them, because I'm telling you, Ohio State's gotten pretty good linebacker play over the last few years. It hasn't always looked the prettiest. It hasn't been the most athletic group. But when you look at what you have out there, when Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese and Peyton Pierce specifically are out there first, like, that is a really, really good group of linebackers that James Laurinaitis has developed.
Yeah, and then you watch Riley Pettijohn and TJ Alford walk off the field, and it's like, okay, well, the future seems like it's in pretty good hands too. And then your mind starts racing to how much do they need to get involved, or can they get involved as true freshmen. That's not really that relevant in terms of getting ready for Texas. Having Peyton Pierce, Arvell Reese, and Sonny Styles locked in and ready to go, and understanding what Matt Patricia and James Laurinaitis want to do with this defense, that's job number 1. And then you can worry about the future and getting experience when you get to Grambling in Ohio, maybe the following 2 weeks for those guys. But, because you're still going through 16 games, you still probably don't want to rely on just those 3 guys for, 600, 700 snaps, although I think Sonny would be willing to take it, and Arvell is certainly not far behind in that regard either. Linebacking group, defensive linemen, those are good choices. The tight ends are so involved for Ohio State, and I don't know if that's a thing that can carry over into actual games. I don't want to fall into the trap of
This is the year.
It's the year of the tight end.
We've seen more tight end screens in 3 days of Ohio State practice.
A crazy
than
amount.
than I've seen in 14 years covering the team.
And some of the ways that they're being used are not even just these tight end screens. Now that's designed. Max Claire's getting the ball in his hands, and he's going to have some opportunities to make plays after.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. But Bennett Christian, this does not seem like Ryan Day was. I make this point all the time. When he says something into a microphone, he means it, and there's a reason that he's saying it. When he brought him up in Las Vegas, when he took him to the luncheon on Friday, Bennett Christian, it's because they think that there's something that's really kicking into gear. And some of the volume of targets that Bennett Christian has received or did receive through the first 3 days of practice is a product of Will Kazmarek not being full go for some of them. So that the totals are inflated a little bit. But if you don't think Bennett Christian is going to play a meaningful role for this team, you might want to reconsider.
You do the right things and you get rewarded. That's the way that sports are wired. It's the way sports are built. And that's why when you see Bennett Christian, like he's the one out there leading the tight ends. He's the one doing extra reps. He's the one walking off to the side and pulling an offensive lineman and saying, hey, what are we doing here? He's the guy that him and Brandon Inniss, like I don't think we're going to talk a lot about those two once the season's. Brandon Inniss is going to have a fine season. He's going to have a lot of targets and a lot of catches, but he's still going to be overshadowed by Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate or Max Claire or whatever. But like the impact those two have on the field right now is impossible to ignore. Brandon Inniss on Saturday basically was like a 11th coach or whatever. They're setting up the offense, and Brandon Inniss is running down the field and moving the young receivers into the right spot, and
calling penalties on the defense, getting in Mylan Graham's face because of either a lack of purpose or a lack of execution on a play. Like Brandon Inniss and Bennett Christian, these guys got mentioned by Ryan Day for a reason. Like Ryan Day is not just going to blow smoke up people's butts for fun. Like these guys have made a big impact. And we talked about it on Friday night on the Buckeye Show, but the simple truth here is that in a team that was desperate for leadership after this offseason and losing as much as they left, you have to feel great if you're Ohio State about what those guys are giving you. Who's the one guy for you that we haven't talked enough about who we should have after the first week of camp?
I mean, it's probably Austin Sareveld because I haven't noticed any when he's been out on his side. He's doing his job, and we talked on Saturday about Ethan Anianwa and the two pretty bad reps that he had against Caden Curry and CJ Hicks. Haven't seen those happen to Austin Sareveld. He's just slow and steady, wins the race, and he's doing the right things. He's in the right spots. And on defense, I would say it's probably Davison Igbinosun, who I think has been. Like we've seen the other corners getting a little handsy. I have not noticed that out of Davison to this point. So I don't know if the offseason that he had
used those hands to force a fumble.
Used a lesson. He punched the ball out of Carnell Tate's hands on Saturday, doing a lot of good things. Everyone was always ready for the next thing. We're always ready to give Jermaine Matthews the all Big Ten honors. We're ready to put Devin Sanchez into the starting role. Here's your four-year starter in college football in the SEC and at Ohio State. This guy's pretty good, and we don't talk about it very much.
I think that still goes for Lorenzo Styles. Maybe it'll change at some point because Bryce West is doing good things, Aaron Scott is doing good things, Miles Lockhart had a good day on Saturday. There are other options, and there's competition to be on the field. And Caleb Downs also, you have to lump him into that big nickel conversation with what Ohio State's doing, although we saw some formations where Lorenzo Styles was also on the field with Caleb Downs, traditionally with him in his normal role at safety. So that's an option there. But when they went with the first team for the first period of team drills, Lorenzo Styles is still out there at nickel. I think Ohio State believes in him. And I don't think it's wrong to suggest that some of these other guys that they've recruited, the other guys that are competing for that job, they may have higher ceilings and they may well have longer NFL careers.
They might be a touch more athletic,
but I can't now get it out of my head when you compared Lorenzo Styles to Tanner McAllister, where that became a situation where Ohio State in that nickel role could not accept fluctuation in variance, and the consistency became more important at that given moment.
Right, than the potential for a huge play.
And I think that that's maybe where Lorenzo Styles, that's his differentiator. It's not because he has the highest ceiling, but it is because it's a stable floor. I've been maybe using that analogy too much throughout the first few days, but there are positions where I think that's probably going to be the deciding factor. That may well be the case at nickel as well.
You can't be out there if you're at risk to giving up a touchdown every other play. Now, you might get an interception every third play, but if you're, we saw that in the last couple of years of Cam Martinez here, like, for example, he obviously athletically twitched up. He was what they wanted in that spot, but he wasn't consistent enough in coverage to be able to stay out there. And that's what Tanner McAllister did. He was always in the right spot. That's what Lorenzo Styles is doing. He's going to be in the right spot. He's going to make the smart play.
And I think that there's and I've looked at the PFF grades, and I wrote about Lorenzo's numbers a couple of weeks ago. Like, in covers, they're not great. And we all watched the games, and we saw it was like, okay, well, they're going dime, whoever it is.
Yeah.
They're going to attack Lorenzo Styles. Well, of course they would. Look at the other defensive backs that are on the field. You think you have the best shot of success there. But when Lorenzo Styles was giving up completions, he was immediately putting the guy on the ground. They did not slip out of his grasp, run away from him, or they did not run behind him. And that's important.
You're going to give up first downs in college football these days.
Yeah. So it's fair to look at the numbers and the stats and say, well,
the measurables, all that stuff.
You have to get better in coverage. Lorenzo Styles would be the first person to tell you that he doesn't want to give up a completion. But it is going to happen to everybody. And if you get him on the ground consistently and reliably, that's going to keep you on the field. So it's not going to be as much fun to talk about him compared to, what this look like if Jermaine Matthews is in there, or Caleb Downs, or is Bryce West going to continue on this upswing? That's more, that's sexier to talk about.
Yeah.
Like that's fun, but that's not always what wins football games.
Is there any other player that we haven't discussed enough after 3 days? Because I have one, and I think we've talked about him a lot, but because of the circumstances with Edric Houston that started on Thursday, we have just not talked about Kayden McDonald, who's been basically unblockable. He's been basically unblockable in the first 3 days of practice out here that we saw. Kayden McDonald's really good. Like, this is the one tech that Ohio State needs, and if they get a healthy Edric Houston back, those two are going to be really good.
Yeah. We could talk about Kayden McDonald for a really long time, so I don't know that we need to do that. It's fair to call that out. Looking forward to a Talking Tuesday this time tomorrow as we get ready. Ryan Day, what's the position group? I don't remember who's talking.
One of them.
There's going to be some Buckeyes to talk to. We'll get into all of that.
But Ryan Day is the bigger thing after.
Oh, it's quarterbacks on Tuesday. How silly of me.
Whoops.
So we'll be bringing that back with more conversation.
That will be like the last quarterback discussion for a few weeks, probably, right? Until a starter is named.
Well, I don't know what else we can really add until we get to that point. So Ryan Day and the quarterbacks on Tuesday. A little bit of a day off for us after 3 straight days in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. We don't want it, but we'll take it. And we'll be back in here on Tuesday for that full coverage with some snap judgments after Talking Tuesday. And what else is going on the beat this week?
Never know. I mean,
little thing called You'll See.
Little thing called You'll See. We're trying to get busy. It's football season, but we also have to look at it and be like, this is our last chance to see our wives for months.
It's true.
So got to try to see my wife.
All right. Busy week coming up. Thanks for spending part of your Monday with us right here on The Beat on the Austin and Berm Show.
My wife.
97.1 The Fan, 10 TV, and 10 TV Plus. And if you want to download us on your audio-only platforms, you can get that podcast wherever you normally do. Yeah. Take us on the go. He's Berm. I'm Austin Ward. It's The Beat. Talk to you tomorrow.